If anyone's watched Frieren, we all remember the absolute peak of the anime, the first class mage exam arc. It's a miracle that I even got that far. Frieren's peak.
Alright, I'm going to say what half the anime community is scared to admit. Frieren had to be boring. And if she wasn't, Frieren, Beyond Journey's End would completely fall apart. Yes, I said it. If you think Frieren should have been louder, more emotional, more dramatic, more main character energy, then you fundamentally misunderstood the story. This isn't a battle shonen hype machine. It's a post-heroic meditation on time, grief, and regret. And that only works if the protagonist feels quiet.
Arrives extremely slowly. I usually struggle when it comes to watching shows that feel episodic. We're guided to the summit in the most scenic routes. So scenic, you begin to reflect. Whoever watches Frieren for plot better lube up. There is no plot. Frieren and Fern wander around doing mundane everyday activities. They literally do not even have a destination when they begin their journey. Taking the mage exam wasn't even on their agenda. Frieren doesn't flex its hype moments. They feed us crumbs. It's our job to engage with the story. What they do give us are some of the most arbitrary details, like the clothes dissolving potion. Oh. Why does this potion even exist? A rare potion that's solely used for undressing people. It's these little details that are precisely what makes the show meaningful. They're layered everywhere, not only in objects, but also in characters, interactions, probably a lot more that I haven't caught onto. I implore everyone to pay closer attention when watching. There's a lot to miss or catch. In fact, they don't even tease the exam arc early on. That's big dick writing, intentionally withholding the climax of the season. It's not easy to do, especially with how highly reflective the story already is. The lack of momentum risks dragging material and putting people to sleep.
Controlled, almost distant. Let's break this down. Frieren is an elf who lives for centuries. Humans? They're temporary. The adventure to defeat the Demon King? That was just a brief chapter in her lifespan. The emotional punch of the series only hits because she doesn't immediately process her feelings about Himmel's death. If she broke down crying in episode 1 with a dramatic monologue, the entire theme of delayed understanding would be gone. Her stillness is the storytelling device. Her boring demeanor is the mechanism that makes the regret feel real.
Ask me how I know. That's the whole point though. There's no payoff that's promised from watching something. If you don't enjoy it by the time you get to the exam arc, you're probably boned. But hold up. That circles back to my original question. Why'd I watch this shit if it's so slow? It wasn't entirely due to patience, vibes, or the characters. Those details of the show that I was talking about, there's a lot, and my curiosity wants the answers to them. We trust that the show is taking us somewhere. I'll use my favorite example that kept me watching, the power system. It's one of the most conceptual designs I've seen since Hunter x Hunter. We get a glimpse of its intricacy when Frieren decides to teach Fern the fundamentals, which is defensive magic. Contrary to my intuition, defensive magic is more costly than offense in mana. But the way they describe it makes perfect sense. It costs a lot to make an entire bubble for a shield, and to keep it up for extended amounts of time. So it's best to use it selectively, as little as possible, when you absolutely need it. Imagine a big sword. It's heavy to carry and swing around, and tiring to be on constant alert for enemies. You keep it sheathed when you don't need it. But most importantly, it's the philosophy behind defense. It's for survival. About choosing the right moments and not needing to turn everything into a battle. Frieren didn't become Omega old because she's invincible, but because she's wise. There were times where even she struggled, with a legendary party at her backing. 80 years ago, the hero party couldn't kill Qual.
And here's where
alone?
people get it twisted. Calm does not mean empty. Frieren oversleeps. She obsessively collects obscure grimoires. She awkwardly navigates human customs. She's unintentionally funny. She slowly, painfully learns how much Himmel cared for her. Years too late. That's character development, just not the flashy kind. Modern anime discourse has trained viewers to expect explosive transformation arcs. Frieren's growth is microscopic, subtle, realistic, and for some people that subtlety reads as nothing
Wiped
happening.
out 40% of adventurers and 70% of mages. This guy at one point was the Thanos of his universe. It makes me wonder how the hell Frieren's party even beat the Demon King, if they struggled with just one of his soldiers. For Qual's situation, Frieren had to seal him away because he was too powerful. In the 80 years that Qual was sealed, mages were able to research his offensive magic. What was once the most terrifying spell was turned into baby piss magic. When Qual's seal is undone, Frieren and Fern kill him in a matter of seconds. No one is above time. It removes all power, spectacle, and people that you cherish. If time erases everything, why do anything? Why do we want to learn about people? Why do we want to be understood in return? And yet, we're still here, humans, millennia after millennia, still asking the same questions, going through the same struggles. Even in fantasy settings like Frieren, there's always a goal, something that people collectively work towards, a reason that keeps them going. Frieren's party ran away from Qual. It wasn't cowardice. Continuing that fight.
But ask yourself this, what is the story actually about? It's not about defeating villains. It's about understanding moments you once ignored. It's about realizing you didn't value someone until they were gone. A hyper-expressive, over-the-top protagonist would sabotage that tone instantly. Frieren's emotional restraint mirrors the passage of time itself. Slow, quiet, irreversible. That's intentional writing, not weak writing.
It would have been a death sentence. Their goal wasn't to win the fight. It was to bring peace by defeating the Demon King. Even the main characters aren't always the main characters. So instead of dying there, they bought time. Himmel never lived to see Qual defeated. He died without knowing whether the world would ever truly be at peace. There was no certainty that what he worked toward would bear fruit. But he had hope. He had faith that someone down the line would eventually be strong enough to take down Qual. He believed Frieren would one day find a solution, that when the seal weakened, she wouldn't allow Qual to return and slaughter people the way he once had. So Himmel kept watch over the seal, year after year, until the end of his life. He reassured the villagers nearby. He didn't know what the future outcome would be, but he believed in the people who would inherit the problem. And that's what made Himmel a hero. He wasn't remembered.
Here's the uncomfortable truth. Some viewers don't hate Frieren because she's boring. They hate her because she doesn't perform emotion on command. She doesn't give instant gratification. She forces you to sit with silence. And in an era of clip culture, constant hype, and algorithm-driven attention spans, that feels almost rebellious. The series trusts you to notice small gestures, a glance, a pause, a late realization. If you blink, you miss it.
As the strongest fighter that defeated the Demon King, or that he was the most qualified person to be protecting people. Himmel accepted that he couldn't do it alone. He trusted people. He trusted that they were resilient enough and important enough to be protected. So he formed connections. He showed up. He left impressions. He made people feel as if they mattered. That's all it takes to make an impact that lasts, because those connections remembered him. Himmel's desire to protect others didn't die with him. It became something shared. People weren't forced to carry his dream forward. They were moved by it. That's why Frieren answered his call. There was no obligation for her to take down Qual. Himmel believed in her long before she could believe in herself. That's the heart of Frieren. The exam.
So here's the ragebait headline. Frieren isn't boring. She's disciplined. She's written with thematic precision. And if you think she needed to be louder to be compelling, maybe you're expecting the wrong genre from the wrong story. Sometimes an anime protagonist has to be boring to protect the emotional core of the narrative. And Frieren is proof that quiet characters can carry some of the loudest themes in modern anime.